In July 2016, diver Jacob Childs went on a group diving trip off the coast of southeast Queensland, Australia. The boat stopped roughly 35 miles from shore, far enough that once someone disappeared from view, the ocean could swallow them completely. Jacob was one of the last divers to enter the water, and at first, nothing seemed unusual. But about a minute after he went in, the dive line slipped from his hand. He thought he could simply swim back to the boat and start again. But when he got closer, he realized the rope had already been pulled in. Before he could correct the mistake, the surface current caught him and began carrying him away from the vessel. Within moments, he was separated from the group, drifting farther into open water with no realistic way to fight his way back. To make matters worse, the boat captain had reportedly moved away to fish, while divers were still in the water. By the time the rest of the group realized Jacob was missing, he was already out of sight. He was now alone in the ocean, around 35 miles from land, with daylight fading and the water slowly pulling heat from his body. The temperature was not cold enough to knock him out quickly, but it was cold enough to drain him over time, increasing the risk of exhaustion and hypothermia with every passing hour. A rescue plane flew above him more than once, but failed to spot him, even while there was still enough light for his safety marker to be visible. Jacob knew that once darkness fully settled in, his chances of being found would drop dramatically.
Well, the sun's going down. If the sun goes down, they won't do nothing. That's a wrap on old Jakey, I guess.
With nothing else to do, he recorded what he believed might become his final message to his family. Swimming for shore was not a real option. Even if he could somehow identify the correct direction, the distance was too far, and trying to swim it would likely drain the last of his strength. At one point, he tried moving toward a fishing boat in the distance, hoping he could get close enough to be seen, but quickly realized it was unreachable.
It's way too far for me. It'd be like 15, 16 meters now.
The smartest thing he could do was also the hardest. Stay where he was, conserve energy, and trust that rescuers would keep searching the right area. But as the sky darkened and aircraft passed without seeing him, frustration and fear began to build.
There's a plane coming back. There's a rescue boat way over there. Helpful, that.
The salt water was dehydrating him, the cold was wearing him down, and every minute made survival feel less certain. Still, Jacob managed not to panic. After more than 6 hours drifting alone in open water, he was finally spotted by a helicopter and rescued by boat just before night fully took over. He survived without permanent injuries, but only barely. Out there, in the open ocean, the difference between rescue and disappearance came down to timing, visibility, and the decision not to waste the little strength he had left. But if you thought that was a long fight to survive, prepare yourself for this next one.
I'm on my voice. It is now Sunday morning and the snow has not let up. It's about 6.5 feet deep, I think. And I'm held up here in the Jeep. I just want to come home.
This is the video 46-year-old Paula Lane recorded for her mother and her 11-year-old twin boys after being stranded for days in the freezing wilderness. At that point, Paula believed there was a real chance she would never make it home. She was cold, starving, exhausted, and completely cut off from help. So she used what little battery she had left to record a final message, not because she wanted to give up, but because she knew she might not get another chance to say goodbye. The situation began on November 29, 2012, when Paula and her 44-year-old boyfriend, Roderick Clifton, left Citrus Heights, California, to drive more than 100 miles to her mother's home in Gardnerville, Nevada. At first, it was supposed to be a normal trip through the mountains, They had dinner plans, enough time to spare, and no reason to believe the day would turn into a survival story. But along the way, Roderick decided to take a detour toward Burnside Lake, a place the couple knew from summer camping trips with their children. The road had already been closed for the season, blocked by a gate and covered in ice, but Roderick knew the area and wanted to test his new Jeep in the snow. So he drove around the gate. At first, the decision seemed harmless. They reached the lake around 7 p.m., but when they tried to turn around and leave, the Jeep became stuck in deep, soft snow. For hours, they tried everything they could to free it, but nothing worked. And as the temperature dropped, the danger became much more serious. They had left home in light fall clothing with no camping supplies, no real food, no fresh water, and no cell service. The only food they had was a small bag of green tomatoes given to them before the trip. With no way to call for help, they spent the night inside the Jeep, hoping conditions would improve by morning. But overnight, a snowstorm hit the area, burying the road even deeper and making the situation far worse. The next day, after another failed attempt to free the vehicle, Roderick made the decision to walk for help. The highway was nearly 6 miles away, through snow that reached waist deep in some places. He put on as many layers as he could, wrapped plastic bags around his shoes to keep them dry, and promised Paula he would return with help. But he never came back. Alone in the Jeep, Paula was left with almost nothing. She survived by eating 1 or 2 tomatoes a day, melting snow in her mouth for water, and wrapping herself in whatever clothes and blankets she could find. As the days passed and the storm continued, she began to believe she might die there. That was when she recorded the message to her family.
Mom, my voice. It is now Sunday morning and the snow has not let up. It's about 6.5 feet deep, I think. And I'm held up here in the Jeep. I'm eating a green tomato a day. I'm eating as much snow as I can remember to and trying to stay warm. I just want to come home. Ron left Friday morning. Today's Sunday. Ron left Friday morning to go get help and didn't come back. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got hypothermia and frostbite or if some critter got him. But I can't walk out in this because I don't have the clothing. I just want to see my babies and my mom. I'm so sorry that this happened. But as soon as the sun comes out, I'm going to have to try to make it. It's 7 miles and 6 feet of snow. I don't think I'm going to do so well, but nobody's ever going to find me here at Burnside Lake.
Luckily, on the morning of December 2nd, the storm eased just enough for Paula to make a decision. If help was not coming to her, she would try to reach help herself. She packed a backpack with the few essentials she had, including scissors and a flashlight, then improvised gloves and socks using masking tape and tissue. But the journey back was far harder than she expected. With every step, she sank into the snow, and eventually walking became almost impossible. She had to crawl, using her backpack to help drag herself forward. Her body was already weak from hunger, dehydration, and cold exposure, and the effort pushed her even closer to collapse. Hours into the trek, she began losing feeling in her hands and feet. She was coughing up blood, drifting in and out of awareness, and struggling to keep moving. Then the storm returned, forcing her to take shelter inside a hollow fallen tree filled with spiders. She spent 2 more nights there, trying to preserve enough strength to continue. By then, the tomatoes were gone, her body was failing, and survival depended on one final attempt. On December 5th, 6 days after she and Roderick became stranded, Paula crawled out of the tree and forced herself forward again. That was when she found Roderick's body, partially covered by snow. He had likely died from hypothermia after leaving to find help. As devastating as that discovery was, it also pushed Paula to keep going. She knew that if she stopped, she would suffer the same fate. Search efforts had already begun after the couple disappeared, but because no one knew about the detour to Burnside Lake, rescuers had no clear place to look across the long mountain route they could have taken. The weather also made aerial searching nearly impossible. But Paula's brother Gary remembered that she and Roderick had visited Burnside Lake before. On December 5th, he decided to check the area himself. After 6 days in the wilderness, he found Paula crawling along the road, barely alive. It had started raining, and rescuers later believed she may have died from hypothermia and exhaustion if he had arrived even 15 minutes later. Gary got her to safety, and Paula was taken to the hospital, where she was treated for frostbite and exposure. Against almost impossible odds, she survived. But what began as a short detour turned into 6 days of cold, hunger, loss, and one final crawl toward life. But if you thought that was terrifying, hold on, because this next clip is a whole other level of nightmare. On April 27, 2026, a woman named Giselle, who lives alone somewhere in Dallas, Texas, woke up in the middle of the night to something deeply unsettling inside her apartment. From her bed, she began recording after hearing strange noises coming from the other side of her bedroom door.
Obviamente no me voy a levantar a ver qué es, pero tengo miedo, estoy temblando del miedo. Si pasa algo... No mames. No mames. Creo que hay alguien atrás de la puerta. O algo. Tengo miedo. Tengo miedo.
Through the small gap underneath it, something could be seen moving against the door. At first glance, it almost looked like a black shoe, but the footage is too unclear to say for sure. What made it terrifying was not just the shape itself, but the fact that something appeared to be moving right outside her room while she was alone. Believing there could be an intruder, or something else, inside the apartment, Giselle waited until the movement seemed to stop. Then, as soon as she thought she had a chance, she ran out of the house and straight to her car.
Pero salí corriendo de ahí porque ya no puedo, ya no sé qué hacer. Son las 4 de la mañana. Pero sé que había algo ahí, sé que miré algo y no estoy loca. No estoy loca. Tengo que entrar a trabajar al rato y no he dormido nada. Estoy nerviosa, no sé qué está.
What makes the situation even stranger is that Giselle reportedly had motion-activated security cameras around her home. These cameras were supposed to record whenever movement was detected, yet they apparently captured nothing at the time. No alert, no footage, no sign of anyone entering, even though something had clearly been moving behind that door. Disturbed by what had happened, Giselle contacted a police officer she knew and asked him to look into the history of the apartment. According to what he told her, since 2022, 3 people had reportedly died in that apartment, and since 2024, there had allegedly been 3 shootings connected to the same location. After that night, the strange activity only seemed to continue. Her motion-activated cameras allegedly began moving on their own, almost as if they were tracking something inside the apartment.
Tengo miedo.
But whenever Giselle panned the camera to see what had triggered it, nothing appeared. No person, no shadow, no obvious source, just an empty room. Other strange events followed, Lights would turn back on after she had switched them off, and doors would open by themselves.
I know!
One night, while sitting in the living room reading Psalm 91 from the Bible, something suddenly startled her. The sound of a door opening somewhere nearby could be heard, and Giselle immediately froze. Afraid that whatever had opened that door might come closer, she tucked herself into the sofa and waited, hoping the door near her would stay closed. Then, on another night, her security camera captured something even harder to explain. An object appeared to be pulled from the table by itself, and shortly afterward, a sound resembling a woman's laugh could be heard. The following night, Giselle was watching something on her laptop while eating when another unsettling moment happened. After everything she had recorded, the movement beneath the door, the camera behavior, the doors, the lights, and the strange sounds, Giselle became convinced that something was wrong inside the apartment. But according to her, she had only moved in about 5 months earlier, and because of her circumstances, she could not simply leave. She had reportedly asked to be moved to another unit, but her requests were denied. So for now, she remains there, waiting for answers, while the question stays open. Was this all a series of strange coincidences? Or is something inside that apartment making itself known? With that question lingering, prepare for something far more heartbreaking. In September 2019, 40-year-old Stephen Weber Jr. and his girlfriend, Kanisha Antoine, traveled to Pemba Island in Tanzania for what was supposed to be one of the happiest trips of their lives. Stephen had been planning to propose, and he chose a place that seemed almost impossible to make more romantic: the Manta Resort, known for its floating underwater room just off the coast. The room offered a 360-degree view of the ocean below, with windows looking directly into the surrounding marine life. And for Stephen, that became the center of the proposal. He put on swimming goggles, dove down outside the room, and appeared at one of the underwater windows, while Kanisha filmed from inside. Then he pressed a note against the glass inside a sealed plastic bag. On one side, it said he could not hold his breath long enough to tell her everything he loved about her, but that everything he loved about her, he loved more every day. Then he flipped the note over, revealing the question he had traveled there to ask: if she would marry him.
Oh, it's so cute. What?
Stephen then showed the ring he had brought with him before swimming upward, expecting to hear her answer. Kanisha stopped recording and rushed toward the surface level, ready to respond. But when she looked outside, Stephen was gone. At first, she searched for him, hoping he had surfaced somewhere nearby or climbed to another part of the structure. But there was no sign of him. Somewhere between showing her the ring and trying to return to the surface, Stephen had disappeared beneath the water. Kanisha called for help, and locals and resort staff rushed to search the area. Eventually, Stephen was found floating in the water, but by then, it was too late. Staff attempted CPR, but he could not be revived. He had drowned before making it back to the surface. What makes the video so heartbreaking is that the entire moment was built around love, not danger. Stephen was trying to create something unforgettable, something Kenesha would carry with her forever. And in a tragic way, he did. But not in the way either of them ever imagined. A proposal meant to begin their future together became the final message he ever gave her. Stephen's story was tragic. This next one is strange, dark, and harder to explain. On April 1st, 2026, a man named Ryan was inside his shed, sorting through old tools and items as he prepared for a yard sale. Most of the things had been left behind by the previous owners, and Ryan was planning to finally clear them out. But while he was organizing everything, he began hearing strange noises coming from the attic area above the shed. He had never really been up there before. The shed was mostly used for storage, and he had never needed to check the space above. But the sounds were too clear to ignore, so Ryan turned on the lights, looked up toward the attic, and started recording.
I got the light on. Oh my God. Listen to this. Listen to this. Dude, I'm telling you, man. Is anybody up here? What the? Is anybody up here? Oh my God. Is anybody up here? Hey, is it? Oh my fucking God!
At the far end of the attic, hidden in the darkness, a strange face-like shape can be seen slowly moving. Ryan did not notice it at the time and only spotted it later while reviewing the footage. But even in the moment, he was already disturbed by something else. A trash can nearby seemed to move on its own. After that, Ryan decided to install a doorbell camera facing the shed. And about a week later, it captured something even more unsettling. A dark figure appears to be hiding outside, slowly moving closer toward Ryan's house. Then, the very next night, something woke him up around 5 a.m.
Listen to me right fucking now. It is 5 o'clock in the fucking morning, and I hear something coming out of my window. Shit. Oh my God, I had the light on. There is something walking around outside of my window.
A chilling voice could be heard, strange enough to keep him awake for the rest of the night. And after these events began, Ryan noticed something even more disturbing about himself. He would often find himself walking toward the windows without thinking, staring out at the shed for long periods of time, almost as if something there was pulling his attention back to it. The next morning, while Ryan was at church with his wife and daughter, his phone suddenly began receiving motion alerts from the camera in the shed. When he checked the footage, what he saw made the situation feel even more serious. Something inside the attic appeared to be moving through the old items, knocking things around and creating chaos while no one was supposed to be there. After seeing the footage, Ryan rushed home. He was clearly shaken, but eventually forced himself to go up into the attic and look for an explanation.
I'm actually scared to go in here, seriously. Like, I just got home and I saw this shit happen in my shed, man. Like, man, this is crazy. I'm scared to seriously go in here. So either I'm gonna call the police because there's somebody up here, or I'm gonna stop being a bitch. Hey, there's got to be someone up here. You know what? I'm not even going around. Hey, there's someone up here. Hey, who's up here? Come on, I'm turning this camera around. Hold on, I gotta start. Dang it, I gotta. Hey, who's up here? Who's up here? Come on, I'm not playing around. Who's up here? Hello? Hey, who is up here? Hello? There is nobody up here. Boxes, wood. I mean, this stuff is old, bro. What is this? Rebuild. 2000 what? 2013. 2013, man. This sounds like what it must have fell over. I mean, this is crazy. Uh-oh, what is this? Uh-oh. What is this? Mr. and Mrs. Ronald J. Oh, whoa. I don't even know if I want to be touching that. An old watch. What is this? What is this? Oh, it's a shot glass. You guys saw up there. There's nothing up there. Okay, look, if you lived in this house, would you even walk up there for a second? I have no reason to. There's nothing up there that I need. And I know I saw this when I looked up there. It looked like a pulley system. So whoever was here must have put stuff in here and pulled it up. That's what that must have been. And that thing completely disconnected. That was tied. Look, I saw it because it was tied around this thing right here.
Once inside, he found no person hiding there. No obvious intruder. Just old books, forgotten items, and several belongings connected to the previous owners, including something marked with the names Mr. and Mrs. Ronald, the first homeowners, who had reportedly helped design the property before Ryan's family moved in. Items had been knocked onto the floor, but there was no clear sign of who or what had caused it. Ryan began to wonder if the strange activity was connected to the old belongings he had planned to sell. Maybe something attached to the previous owners did not want those items removed. Or maybe something else had been hiding in that shed long before he ever opened the attic. Whatever the explanation is, the timing is difficult to ignore. The activity only seemed to begin once Ryan decided to clear out the past. But if you thought something hiding in a shed was disturbing, this next case is far worse. On the morning of June 11, 2021, CCTV cameras across Wembley in London captured a woman calmly walking through the streets carrying a large blue suitcase. At first glance, there was nothing unusual about the footage. It looked like an ordinary morning, an ordinary person doing something completely routine. But that same footage would later become one of the most important pieces of evidence in a case that quickly turned into one of the most disturbing crimes the area had seen in years. Later that day, the Metropolitan Police received a call from a man staying at a home on Chaplin Road. He reported that the homeowner, 67-year-old Deborah Chong, was missing. What made the situation immediately concerning was not just her sudden disappearance, but what she had left behind. Her phone and her glasses, items she reportedly never went without, were still inside the house. Deborah also struggled with severe mental health issues, including schizophrenia, which made the situation more urgent. At times, she had experienced delusions, believing public figures were communicating with her through online platforms. She had no close family in the UK, and her social circle was limited mostly to people from her church. When officers began speaking to those who knew her, one person quickly stood out: 37-year-old Gemma Mitchell, a friend from church. Gemma told investigators that Deborah had been feeling low and may have gone to stay with friends near the coast. But that explanation didn't hold up for long. CCTV cameras around Deborah's home never captured her leaving. There were no taxi records, no public transport logs, and no signs that she had traveled anywhere at all. As days passed with no trace, the case began to stall. Then, on June 27th, everything changed, but not in the way anyone had hoped.
Hi, I just found a body.
Oh, go ahead, caller. What's your emergency?
I just found a body.
Right, okay. A body, is it... Are they breathing?
No, they're dead. They look like they've possibly been there like a few days or something.
A hiker in Salcombe, Devon, more than 200 miles from Wembley, discovered human remains along a wooded path near Bennett Road. The body was later identified as Deborah Chong. What investigators found at the scene confirmed their worst fears. This was not an accident. It was a homicide. The injuries showed that Deborah had been killed and her remains deliberately concealed. With that discovery, the investigation shifted completely. Detectives returned to the people closest to Deborah, and once again, Gemma Mitchell became the focus. This time, they took a closer look at CCTV footage from the morning Deborah disappeared. Cameras showed Gemma walking toward Deborah's house at around 6:30 a.m., carrying a blue suitcase. Hours later, she was seen leaving. But now she had 2 suitcases, and she appeared to be struggling with the weight. That detail immediately raised suspicion. As investigators followed this lead, they uncovered even more evidence. On June 26th, Gemma was captured on CCTV loading the same blue suitcase into a rental car before driving toward the area in Devon where Deborah's remains were later found. That connection was enough for the police to act. On July 6th, Gemma Mitchell was arrested.
Police! Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. There's no answer. Sorry, what's your name?
Sorry, we were asleep.
Are you Gemma?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Gemma. Just could you hold a second?
Sure, sure.
Hold a second.
Sorry, could I
Gemma, do you want to come out?
Yeah, sure.
Guys, just want to see them.
Hand just so your hands. All right, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
She did not resist. At the station, she refused to answer questions, responding only with no comment. But by then, investigators already had what they needed to begin building the case. A search of Gemma's home revealed the motive behind everything. She lived with her mother in a property that had been undergoing expensive renovations. After a contractor disappeared with a large sum of money, they were left with an unfinished home and mounting financial pressure. Deborah, believing she was helping a friend, had previously offered a significant amount of money to support those renovations. But after receiving treatment for her mental health, Deborah began to reconsider her decision. In early June 2021, she withdrew the offer and told Gemma not to come to her house again. Phone records showed a message from Deborah making it clear she no longer wanted contact. That decision appears to have triggered everything that followed. Investigators later discovered a forged will at Gemma's home, naming her and her mother as beneficiaries of Deborah's estate. The evidence painted a clear picture. The visit that morning was not accidental. It was planned. In October 2022, Gemma Mitchell stood trial and was convicted. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 34 years. What began as a missing person report quickly turned into a case built on deception, financial motive, and betrayal. And the most chilling part is that it all started with something that looked completely ordinary. A woman walking down the street with a suitcase, captured on camera, long before anyone realized what it really meant. That's all for today, folks. If you'd like to see more of this creepy content, click on the video on screen.